I'm Nina. I'm 26, and I'm an accountant. In my family, I'm the one who learned to pay her own way. I've paid for my own college with loans, my own car, and my own apartment. I've been completely on my own, financially, ever since I turned 18. We were all sitting in a sterile, quiet lawyer's office for my grandmother's will reading. The air was thick. The lawyer read that my sister, Laura, would receive Grandma's wedding rings. Then, he adjusted his glasses and looked right at me. To my granddaughter Nina, I leave the remainder of my estate. My hearing went fuzzy. My heart hammered against my ribs. Valued at approximately $150,000. The call came less than 24 hours later. It was my mother. There was no congratulations, Nina. No, how are you feeling? Just a cold, immediate demand. You need to give your sister $50,000. I was stunned. I asked her why. Her exact words? So it would be fair. That one word fair, it snapped something deep inside me. I told her no. And that's when my phone started exploding. Have you ever been told that your hard-earned success is somehow unfair to someone else? My sister, Laura, is 28. I'm 26. And for as long as I have been alive, there has been her, and there has been me. She is the golden child. I am the scapegoat. It's not something I realized later in life. It's not a complex I developed. It's a fact I learned as a child, as fundamental as gravity. It was the operating system of our family, and it all came down to the two family checkbooks, the one that was always open for her, and the one that was slammed shut for me. When Laura was 18, I remember the excitement, the trips to Bed Bath & Beyond, the car loaded with new bedding for her dorm, my parents beaming with pride as they signed the tuition check. It was a given. It was her right. 2 years later, it was my turn. I sat at the same kitchen table, my acceptance letter in my hand. But the mood was different. There was no excitement. There were no catalogs for dorm furniture. There was just a lecture. A heavy, awkward, life-altering lecture. Nina, my father said, not quite meeting my eyes, we think it's important for you to learn responsibility. We've given you enough, my mother added, her voice clipped. You're 18 now. You're cut off. Cut off. Just like that. No discussion. No, we can help this much. Just a wall. I was on my own. So, I went to college on my own terms. While Laura was going to football games and joining a sorority, I was working. Not one job, but two. I was the opening barista at 5 a.m. My alarm would go off at 4:15, and I'd drag myself out of bed into the cold, dark air. The smell of burnt coffee and industrial cleaning solution would be stuck to my clothes all day. I'd run from my last class to the campus library, where I was the closing shift assistant. I'd stack books under those awful, humming fluorescent lights until midnight, my brain numb with exhaustion. My college experience wasn't about finding myself. It was about surviving. It was about the constant, cold dread of the $30,000 in student loans I was racking up, a shadow that followed me to every single class, every single shift. That number, $30,000. It was a monster under my bed. When Laura graduated, my parents bought her a car. A brand new, reliable sedan to get her to her new job. I remember seeing it, gleaming in the driveway, a big red bow on the hood, a gift. I bought my own car a year later, after my old one finally died. A 5-year-old sedan that rattled when it went over 50 miles an hour. I paid for it with money I had saved from my campus jobs, my hands shaking as I handed over the $2,000 in cash. It wasn't a gift. It was a lifeline I had bled for. When Laura got her first adult apartment, my parents paid her deposit and first month's rent, a soft, easy landing into the real world. When I got my first apartment, I had to save for 6 agonizing months. 6 months of instant noodles and saying no to every single invitation from friends. 6 months of panic just to scrape together that security deposit. I remember signing the lease, my stomach in knots, praying my credit check, which was non-existent, would be approved. This was our normal. It was never a secret. It was just the way things were. They invested in her. I was expected to manage. How do you rationalize that as a kid? How do you sit at a family dinner and listen to them praise her for achievements they paid for, while you're invisible? You don't. You can't. You just put your head down. You work harder. You study longer. You become fiercely, terrifyingly independent. You build a wall around yourself, brick by brick, and you make a silent promise. You promise yourself that one day you will be so successful, so secure, that you will never have to ask them for a single, solitary thing. I kept that promise. But if the small cuts, the tuition, the car, the apartment deposit were the daily reminders, the wedding was the grand, public declaration. The ultimate proof. The grand finale of their decades-long investment in her. Laura's wedding. It was just last year. And it wasn't just a wedding. It was a production. A full-scale, Hollywood-level production. It was held at one of those historic, opulent venues. A sprawling estate with marble floors, chandeliers that looked like they were dripping diamonds, and gardens that went on for acres. It was massive. I remember walking in and just stopping. I literally stopped in the entryway because I couldn't process it. The air was heavy with the smell of thousands of flowers, lilies and roses, so thick you could almost taste it. A string quartet was playing softly in the corner, the sound echoing beautifully off the high, vaulted ceilings. Waiters in tuxedos drifted by with trays of champagne and impossibly tiny, perfect appetizers. It felt like a movie set, not a party for someone I grew up with. And my parents, Diane and Thomas, were practically floating. I'd never seen them so happy, so radiant. They were beaming, gliding around this grand hall, their arms linked, accepting congratulations. My mother, in a custom dress, kept saying, "Isn't it just perfect?" We just wanted everything to be perfect for her. My father, greeting guests, would laugh and say, "Well, only the best for our Laura, right?" They were the proud producers of this grand show. They had poured everything into their masterpiece, and now they were taking their bow. And they had paid for all of it. Every last cent. My mother had bragged about it for months. The venue, which I knew cost a fortune. The designer dress. The sit-down dinner for over 200 people. The towering, 7-tiered cake. The open bar, stocked with top-shelf liquor. A $40,000 party. $40,000. I remember standing in the back of the ballroom, trying to make myself small, trying to blend into the shadows. The sound of the string quartet was beautiful, but it felt distant, like it was happening in another world. All I could feel was the tag of my cheap dress scratching the back of my neck. I'd bought it from a clearance rack. It was the only formal dress I could afford after paying my rent and my student loan minimum. I had done my own hair. I had done my own makeup, watching a tutorial on my phone, and standing there, surrounded by all this wealth. I felt like an imposter, a fraud. The poor cousin invited out of obligation, a smudge on their perfect, expensive photograph. And as I watched them, all my parents glowing, my sister, the radiant star at the center of this financial galaxy, I did what I always do. The one thing I was truly good at. I did the math. My accountant brain just does it automatically. Siwan Mayuan. I stood there, smiling until my face ached, while my brain churned that number over and over. $40,000. What did that number mean? To them, it meant a party. One perfect day. To me. What could I do with $40,000? My mind just spun. I could pay off my entire $30,000 in student loans. Poof, gone. The monster under my bed, slain. And I would still have $10,000 left over. $10,000. That was 5 times what I paid for my rattling old car. It was an emergency fund. It was a down payment on a small condo. It was a future. It was the freedom to quit a job I hated. It was a vacation, just one, somewhere. It was the ability to breathe. They were celebrating her, spending $40,000 on a single day, while I was at home, panicking over my minimum payments for an education I had earned myself, an education I was still paying for. In that moment, watching them raise their glasses for another champagne toast, everything crystallized. This wasn't just a feeling, it wasn't in my head, it wasn't me being bitter or jealous. It was a number, a quantifiable fact. $40,000 versus $0. A lifetime of investment versus a lifetime of manage on your own. It was clear, It was final. Laura was the family showpiece, the one they polished, funded, and displayed for the world. And I was the family mule, the one expected to carry my own weight, and hers too, without a single complaint. But my relationship with my grandmother, that was different. It wasn't loud. It wasn't transactional. My parents' love was all about investment and results, the results they could show off. Their relationship with Laura was a performance. My relationship with my grandmother was quiet. While my parents were busy funding Laura's life, my grandmother was the one who actually saw mine. She wasn't blind. She saw everything. She was a quiet woman, from a generation that didn't interfere. She never sat my parents down and told them they were failing me. She never confronted them at the $40,000 wedding. But she saw the two-checkbook system. She saw me coming home from a 10-hour day, exhausted, my hands raw from working as a barista, my cheap shoes worn through. She saw me studying at the kitchen table late at night, long after everyone else was asleep, with my second-hand textbooks spread all around me. And she saw Laura. She saw the new car in the driveway, the one with the bow. She saw the boxes for the new apartment, all paid for. She saw the endless parade of new clothes and new opportunities, all handed to her, as if by divine right. My grandmother didn't interfere. It wasn't her way. But she saw, and she acknowledged. She never told me I was lucky to have my jobs. She never told me I needed to learn responsibility. That was my parents' line. She just watched. And when I'd be sitting there, numb with exhaustion, she'd just come over and put a cup of tea in my hand. No words, just, "I see you're tired. Here." I remember one afternoon so clearly. It was in the summer, between my junior and senior year of college. I was working 60 hours a week at 2 different jobs. I was stretched so thin I felt like I was transparent. I had stopped by her house, I think to drop off groceries. She insisted I stay for a minute. We were sitting on her back porch. It was just peaceful. The smell of her roses and the sharp, clean scent of lavender from her garden beds. The faint, metallic sound of wind chimes. The feeling of the old, painted wood chair under my hands. I was just complaining. I was so tired. I was so stressed about tuition for the fall. I was rambling about how my car was making a noise, and I didn't know how I'd pay for it if it broke down. I was just venting into the void. She was quiet for a long time, just watching me, her hands folded in her lap. I finally ran out of steam and just sat there, feeling hollow. Then, she reached out and took my hand. Her skin was soft, and her grip was surprisingly strong. She looked right into my eyes. Her eyes were so clear. She wasn't pitying me. She was seeing me. And she said, "I just want you to know, Nina, I see what's going on." My breath caught in my throat. It was like she had reached into my chest and stilled my racing heart. She continued, her voice soft but firm as steel. "I see how hard you work. You're a good kid, Nina. A very good kid." I don't think I'll ever be able to explain what that moment did to me. It was like I had been holding my breath for my entire life, and I could finally let it out. My whole body flooded with this warmth, this sense of relief. It was like a bone that had been broken for 20 years had finally just set. It was validation. My entire life, my parents' actions had made me feel like I was the problem. I was the one who wasn't good enough. I was the one who was difficult. I was bitter. I was jealous. I had started to believe it. I had started to wonder, am I crazy? Is this all in my head? And in that one moment, with those few words, my grandmother silenced all of it. I am not crazy. It is real. She sees it too. It was the one single piece of validation I had ever received from anyone in that entire family. Someone saw the rigged game. Someone saw me, not as the family mule, not as the other one, but as a good kid who was trying her best. I'm not even sure I cried. It was too deep, too fundamental for tears. It was a tectonic shift in my soul. So now, fast forward to that lawyer's office. When he read that will, when his voice cut through the sterile air, "To my granddaughter Nina, I leave the remainder of my estate, $150,000. I wasn't just hearing the lawyer. I was hearing my grandmother's voice on that porch. I finally understood. My grandmother, in her final act, did the one thing no one else ever would. She made it right. That $150,000 wasn't just money. It was her final word. It was her, from beyond the grave, reaching out, taking my hand one last time, and saying, "I saw you. I see you. This is what you deserved all along. This is the help you earned. This is the start they never gave you." It was her validation, made tangible, made legal, made real. It was her one, final, perfect act of real fairness. I stared at the black screen of my phone. She hung up on me. The silence in my apartment was deafening, heavier and more complete than any noise. I could hear my own blood pounding in my ears. I had just detonated a bomb in the middle of my family, and now, the fallout. It only lasted a second. Bzz. The vibration of the phone on the counter made me jump. I looked down. A text message. My mother. "I have never, ever been so ashamed of you. You are a selfish, ungrateful child." I read the words, selfish, ungrateful. The two words that had defined my entire existence in their eyes. I was selfish for wanting what Laura was given freely. I was ungrateful for not being happy with the scraps I got. Before I could even process it, another, bzz. My father. My father never texts. He's a man of few words, a silent cosigner on all of my mother's emotional decrees. But here he was. "Your mother is in tears. You have no idea what you've done. You have disrespected this entire family. You need to apologize to your sister and fix this. Don't be selfish." Selfish. There it was again. His word, too. It was their official script. I was selfish for keeping something that was legally and morally mine, gifted to me by the one person who saw me. I was ungrateful for not immediately handing over my grandmother's final, loving gift to the daughter who already had everything. And then, the main event. Bzz, bzz, bzz. A rapid-fire assault, now from Laura, my sister, the devastated one, the one who hadn't spoken a single word to me since the will reading, not even to say she was sorry for my grief. She had just sat there, fuming, next to my mother. "You always had to make everything about you, didn't you, Nina? You couldn't even let me have Grandma's memory. You had to make it about money. Bzz. I can't believe you. You know she wasn't in her right mind when she did that. You're taking advantage of a sick old woman. You should be ashamed." That was the one that hit me. Taking advantage, me, the one who had asked for nothing, the one who had given nothing but my own sweat and tears for my own life. I was the predator. She was the victim. My hands were shaking. I couldn't even read them anymore. Each notification was a tiny, digital paper cut, a dozen, then 2 dozen, all telling me I was awful. I was wrong. I was broken. Bzz, my mother again. "You're a bitch, Nina. A cold, heartless bitch, after everything we've done for you. Everything they'd done for me." What, precisely, was that? Taught me responsibility? Cut me off? Left me to sink or swim while they threw Laura a monogrammed life raft? My phone, the same device I used for work and to text my friends and to order pizza. It had become a weapon. It was a live grenade in my hand, vibrating with their synchronized hatred. This wasn't an argument. This was a coordinated attack. They were all in the same room, or on a group chat, passing the phone around. "Okay, now it's your turn to tell her she's awful." This was my family. My mother, my father, my sister. This is what they really thought of me. Underneath all the polite happy birthdays and the forced smiles at Thanksgiving. This was it. This was the truth. All of this poison. Why? Because for the first time in my entire life, I received something. For the first time, I was the one who was given a hand up. For the first time, the scales didn't just tip in Laura's favor. And in their eyes, that wasn't just unfair. It was a crime. I was a thief. I had stolen what was rightfully, by their unwritten laws, hers. How much? I sank onto my couch, the phone still buzzing on the coffee table like an angry, trapped insect. How much do you have to give up before you're allowed to be happy? How much do you have to shrink yourself? How much value do you have to provide? How much do you have to bleed? Before you're allowed to just Have something? I looked at the phone, still lighting up with their rage. And a new thought, cold and clear as ice, cut through the pain. It felt like the last piece of a puzzle clicking into place. They're not grieving. This isn't about my grandmother's memory. This isn't even about Laura's devastation. They're not sad. They're just angry. They're furious. Because for the first time, I have something that they cannot and do not control. I have $150,000 worth of no. I don't need you money. And that terrifies them. They're angry because the mule finally kicked back. I sat at my desk in my small apartment. I didn't move for a long time. I just watched my phone. It sat on the coffee table, across the room. It was still buzzing, still lighting up. A relentless, vibrating tantrum. Bitch. Selfish. Ungrateful. The words just echoed in the room. A phantom chorus of my entire life. Finally, I stood up. My legs felt strangely steady. I walked past the phone, ignoring its angry buzzing. I sat down at my desk. The old wood felt cool under my forearms. I opened my laptop. The quiet whir of the fan was the only sound, a gentle, mechanical hum, and in that moment, it was the most comforting sound in the world. My screen lit up, casting a calm, blue glow on my face. I opened my new bank account. The numbers glowed on the screen, sharp and clear in the digital font. $150,000. It looked unreal, like a typo. My grandmother's final word. Her final, validating act. Then, I opened another tab. My student loan portal, the enemy I visited every month. I logged in, just as I had 1,000 times before. And there, in big, red, angry numbers, was my shadow. The monster. The weight I carried with me. Every single day. Every single hour. My remaining balance. $30,000. I looked at the $150,000. I looked at the $30,000. I thought about my mother's voice, sharp and cold. $50,000. So it would be fair. They want to talk about fair? They want to talk about fixing a mistake? My mother was right. A mistake was made, but it wasn't by my grandmother. The mistake was me, working 2 jobs. The mistake was me, taking on $30,000 in debt just to get the same education they gave my sister. The mistake was me, sitting at that $40,000 wedding, feeling like a worthless imposter. They want $50,000 to make the scales fair for Laura. Fine, I'll be the one to finally balance the scales. I'll start with fairness. For me, my hand was perfectly steady on the mouse. The anger was gone. The shaking was gone. I wasn't that scared girl on the phone anymore. I was an accountant, and this was just a transaction, correcting a long overdue balance. I clicked make a payment. I clicked pay off full balance. My cursor hovered over the box. I typed in the number, 3 to 0 minus 0 to 0 minus 0. My fingers didn't hesitate. I moved the cursor to the submit button. I didn't look away. Click. The page refreshed. I watched the little blue wheel spin, spin, spin. And then, there it was. New text. Green, not red. Balance. $0. I stared at it. Balance. $0. My breath came out in a single, shuddering gasp that I felt all the way down in my feet. The knot in my stomach. The one I'd lived with for so long. I thought it was just a part of me. An organ. It didn't just loosen. It dissolved. I felt a physical sensation, as if a 30-pound weight had been chained to my spine for 7 years, and someone had just, in 1 second, cut it loose. My shoulders, which I hadn't realized were permanently hunched up around my ears, just dropped. Heat flooded my body, but it wasn't anger, it wasn't shame. It was release. 10 years of working 2 jobs, of scrubbing toilets, of missing out, of carrying it all, erased. By a single, beautiful click, I put my head in my hands, and I took my first deep, clear breath in 7 years. I was free. I wasn't done. I sat up. I went back to my bank account. The remaining balance was $120,000. This was my future. This was my grandmother's gift, and I would protect it. I opened another tab, the portal for a completely different bank, an online-only, high-yield savings account. One they knew nothing about. One that wasn't connected to my past in any way. I created the account. I entered the routing numbers. I transferred the entire $120,000. I watched the balance move from one screen to another. Click, done, secured. My fortress. An account they could not find, could not touch, and could not ever lay claim to. Finally, I turned back to the phone. It was quiet for a moment, charging on the coffee table. I picked it up. The lock screen was a wall of missed calls and hateful, venomous messages. I opened my contacts. Mother Diane. I looked at the name. My thumb hovered. Block. A quiet swoosh as the option confirmed. Father, Tom's. Block. Laura, my devastated sister. Block. I went to my text messages. The flood of hate. Delete thread. Confirm. Delete thread. Confirm. Delete thread. Confirm. I turned the phone over, screen down, and set it gently on my desk. I was done. The family, I'm told. Well, I'm not told anything, really. The silence from their end has been total. After that initial barrage, that final, desperate explosion of rage, nothing. I imagine they're furious. I imagine my mother, Diane, is apoplectic. She lost. She lost the argument. She lost her narrative. She lost her control. And she lost her scapegoat. She can't call me a bitch or ungrateful anymore, because I'm not there to hear it. I've taken away her audience. And the most beautiful part of it all, the part that I'm sure is eating them alive, they have absolutely no legal recourse. I'm an accountant. I know numbers, but I also know the law. And I know my grandmother's will was ironclad. Her mind was perfectly sharp, and her intention was crystal clear. My sister has no legal claim to my inheritance. They can't sue me. They can't contest it. They can't do anything, except be angry. So, let's do the final audit. My sister, Laura, has her wedding rings. She has the memory of her $40,000 wedding. She has her paid-for college degree and her gifted car. She has her entire life of being the golden child, bankrolled by my parents. And I have my freedom. I think I got the better deal. A week after I blocked them, I moved. I used a small fraction of the money to hire movers. I didn't ask friends. I didn't struggle with a U-Haul. I just paid for help. It was a revelation. I packed up my old, cramped apartment, the one I had saved for 6 agonizing months to get, and I moved into a new one. A bright, clean, one-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood they don't even know. I'll never forget that first night. I didn't have any furniture yet, just a few boxes stacked against the wall. I had ordered cheap takeout, and I sat on the floor of my new, empty living room. The sun was setting, casting long, golden rectangles on the bare wood floors. The room smelled like new paint and clean, finished wood, and it was silent. My phone was on the counter, face up, and it was dark. It wasn't buzzing. It wasn't vibrating with rage and accusations. There were no demands, no insults, no selfish, no ungrateful, no bitch. I could hear the faint sound of traffic, far away, a distant shush from a world that had nothing to do with me. For the first time in my 26 years, there was no noise. No one was disappointed in me. No one needed anything from me. I closed my eyes. I just breathed. I could feel the tension I had been carrying in my shoulders and my jaw since I was a child just melt. It flowed out of me and into the floor. This was it. This was the peace I had been fighting for. This was the gift. Not the $150,000. This, the silence, the freedom to just exist. I picked up my phone, my quiet phone. I opened a new text message. My best friend, Sarah. The one who had listened to me cry about my family for a decade. I typed, I did it. I paid off my loans and I'm out. I'm in the new place. A minute later, her reply came. Not a demand, not an accusation. Yes. I am so proud of you. I'm on my way with pizza and a bottle of cheap champagne. Don't you dare move. I laughed. A real, actual laugh that came from my stomach. I looked around my empty, beautiful, silent room. That was the difference. My family saw my gain as their loss. My real family, my found family, saw my victory as hers, too. She was coming to celebrate with me. That $120,000? It's sitting in that high-yield savings account. Just like I said in my update, it's earning interest. It's not a fantasy. It's my new foundation. It's not I'm rich money. It's I'm safe money. It's the ability to say no. It's the power to walk away from a toxic job. It's the security of knowing that if my car breaks down, it's an inconvenience, not a catastrophe. It's a down payment on a small condo one day, a piece of property that my name is on, that I earned. It's the future my parents never planned for me, the one they never would have contributed a single dollar towards. My grandmother knew exactly what she was doing. She didn't just leave me $150,000. She left me a launch pad. She didn't just give me money. She gave me the validation my parents had refused to give me my entire life. She gave me the power to finally choose myself. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You are not responsible for fixing a family dynamic that you did not break. You are not selfish for keeping what you have earned, and you are not ungrateful for refusing to light the match. If you have ever had to be your own parent, your own advocate, your own hero, join our community. We see you. We know what it's like. And we have so many more stories to share. Hit that subscribe button.